Anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s in America probably remembers the commercials during Saturday morning cartoons showing the subject of today's episode. These giant beast machines were jumping over buses, crushing cars, and coming to a coliseum near you. Even if you've never been to a show, the iconic voice behind the commercial is sure to dig up some memories.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!
Well, actually, this episode is set to release on Monday.
Oh, okay. Monday, Monday, Monday!
I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind
Monster Trucks!
But first, a quick message.
Hi, this is Layla. You're listening to my mom's podcast. If you like the story behind, tell your friends. Have fun.
In 1973, construction worker Bob Chandler was in a motorcycle accident that ended his career. The following year, he and a friend began four-wheeling for fun, which he ended up being very skilled at, even getting the nickname Bigfoot for his truck because of his love of acceleration and his lead foot. Mud bogging and tractor pulling were already popular sports, and drivers would lift and modify their trucks to compete. Chandler and Bigfoot began performing at car shows and truck pulls, and one day, Chandler decided he would try to drive the 1974 F-250 pickup modified with 66-inch tires over some junk cars. Luckily, he taped it, and the tape ended up in the hands of the right person, an event promoter who wanted Chandler to perform the car crushing during the intermission of a tractor pull at the Pontiac Silverdome in 1982. From there, the term monster truck was coined, and it went from being an intermission show to its own event, with more modified trucks crushing cars following. Pretty soon, companies decided there needed to be rules put in place and more safety measures taken as the demand grew and hobbyists became paid professionals in the field. The Monster Jam Entertainment Company was born soon after, which is the entertainment company most associated with the sport. But there are plenty of independent shows around the world. When monster trucks began using oversized nitrogen-filled shock absorbers in the suspension, that was when monster trucks went from being known most for crushing cars to being able to perform tricks such as jumping over obstacles. And freestyle competitions became the highlight of the show, with monster trucks doing donuts, wheelies, and jumping over anything as small as a car to an airplane in some shows. The average monster car can jump 125 feet into the air. That's almost 18 Shaqs tall, or 22 Tom Cruises. But if you're thinking of maybe dabbling in monster truck driving, just be aware that these vehicles and modifications can cost a minimum of $200,000, and that's not including the semi needed to haul the monster truck to shows. But there is some payoff that can be had. Monster truck driving has evolved from being entertainment into more of a sport with competitions, trophies, and even sponsorships. Even though it may sound like a hyper-masculine sport, there are plenty of females involved in monster truck competitions, and unlike some other sports, it's not broken up into male or female competitions. They compete together. One of the youngest competitors is Rosalie Raymer, a student at Georgia Tech and originally from Watsonville, California, who has been competing in monster truck events since before she even got her driver's license. The now 20-year-old first sat in a monster truck at age 11 and began driving one when she was 14. Probably the most famous association with the sport is the phrase, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. The man behind the phrase was Jan Gabriel, a motorsport announcer from Chicago. Before that, he was known as Chicago's youngest DJ, and then became an announcer for the Santa Fe Speedway, which isn't in New Mexico, but in Illinois. The track was one of many across the country owned by the same promoter, and Gabriel was tapped to provide the advertisements for the others, including the US 30 drag strip in Hobart, Indiana, which was when he first used the phrase he became famous for. As you can imagine, there were plenty of copycats. But he was also responsible for hosting the show Superchargers from 1992 to 1994, which focused on motorsports, car collectors, and the culture of automobiles, and he is credited with influencing television to cover more NASCAR races and monster truck events. When that happened, the independent tracks Gabriel had originally worked for began disappearing because of the expensive insurance and other bigger venues saturating the market. In an interesting coincidence, when Jan Gabriel died on January 10th, 2010, it just happened to be on a Sunday, and his memorial service was a week later, on another Sunday. The role of the monster truck announcer was played by Matt from the One Word Go show, who was also one of the Story Behind executive producers. Information for this episode was sourced from the Newswheel, The New Yorker, NPR, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. This episode was brought to you by the Story Behind executive producers who support the show through the Patreon page at patreon.com/thestorybehind. Stargate Pioneer from GonnaGeek.com, Matt from the One Word Go show, linguist Sam, Diana Denise from History Goes Bump, Scott Smith from Recovering from Religion, Dan Brennick from Netflix and Swill, Jared Dunham from thehistoryfile.net, Heather Welch from Sunshine and Power Cuts, Jason Bryant from Matt Talk Online, Gerald and Andy from Two Peas on a Podcast, Bandrew Scott from the Bandrew Says Podcast and Podcastage YouTube channel, and newest executive producer, Adam from Everyone Has a Podcast. Thanks for listening.